into possibly talking about a little bit of EI. And this is the way to think of it, EI-EIO, or EQ over IQ. So EI is usually what a lot of the researchers call it, emotional intelligence, but EQ, emotional quotient, kind of matches with EQ over IQ, so it sounded fun. But if you do see it, a lot of times it's going to be EI. I'll refer to it as EI for the next 5 minutes or so, just so you have an idea about emotional intelligence. But just so you know, EI is not something separate. It cannot be a separate construct from your IQ. Okay, because without your IQ, without your education, without that educational capital, you cannot have your emotional and social capital. And speaking of capital, that's exactly what's happening in education today, especially in pre-service teachers and as we prepare in education. We are constantly being told they need to master, which is wonderful. I'm a standards-based teacher. I love it. I love that we have something, a goal to go for our kids. But if we focus only on content and mastery of content, without connecting to such content, as well as actually the emotional learning that goes along with it, then we're actually going to lose our teachers. And what I mean by that is constantly, are you an expert in math? Are you an expert in history? An expert in science? Okay, now go teach it. Go forth. Now, we know that teachers naturally, with the calling to teach, will always be understanding to their children. They love their kids. They're there for the kids to inspire and to empower. But there's more than that. It's how you do that. And are you in touch with your own emotions in order for you to deal with the everyday goings on of education? How do you feel? How do you feel when you teach? That's something to think about. Because there are many ways in which we can talk about emotional intelligence. And right now, just a perfect example. Here's a self-scoring book that you can get. Here's a test. Here's Daniel Goleman's philosophy in 1995. And this is what a lot of people in businesses and leaders go for. Here's another one for you right over here on Emotional Intelligence 2.0. Here's another book on emotional intelligence. It's so much out there, but what's out there for teachers? So that's where we have to think about what are the major pillars of emotional intelligence that are actually going to impact how we teach. You know, Daniel Goleman of this book over here, that is a great start for teachers and leaders, a great summer book to read and have a book club going. What might be a great start, at least for emotional intelligence at 101, is talking about the 4 domains. And there are like 4 domains of emotional intelligence that Goleman specifically talks about, which is your own self-awareness. That's basically mean, what are you feeling? How are you feeling? And why you're feeling that way. It's just being actually cognizant of your own emotions. You actually said it, the emotional metacognition. You're thinking about your thinking, but you're also thinking about your emotions. And that's important. The other one is self-managing. Okay, self-management. It's basically how you handle distressing emotions and emotions in general. Because there are 8 major emotions. That's pretty much what it is. 8 major emotions. They're fear, anger, sadness, shame, disgust, jealousy, and then my favorite, which is love and happiness. So we actually have to know how to channel or handle those emotions and why they happen. That's what the self-management is, because emotions are going to happen. It's what drives us. It's what really actually forms us a lot of times. But if we're in touch with them, first we're aware of ourselves and our own emotions and why they're there, then we know how to manage those specific emotions. We can actually drive instruction, drive life, and drive the way we handle everyday circumstances. And that's what's happening in education today. We're not doing that, the self-awareness and the actual I guess you want to call just the self-management, right? But then there's the really major part is empathy, okay? The third part of it is empathy, where you really know how somebody else is feeling. And that is something we do with our kids, but we don't do with our colleagues. We don't know. We often say, hey, let's get our students' stories before we teach them in order for we to embed it into our content, create that social and emotional learning within it as well, and we can teach our kids. But do we know how we are all feeling today? How are you? You know, we talked about this Kasirian and Gira, which is a wonderful way of saying, and how are the children, right?
Right.
And how are the teachers? Because our emotional intelligence greatly impacts how we teach every day. Why teachers are leaving in droves. Did you see Vice News last night on HBO? If anybody has a chance to see that, it's all about the Oklahoma and Arizona teachers who literally had to take in front of the camera and say, I'm leaving the profession. When we have new teachers leaving the profession, when we have new teachers that aren't emotionally ready to deal with the stresses of being a teacher, lack of funding, student trauma, linguistic inequities, inequity in general, student issues that are happening just in everyday life. Can they handle it? And do they have the emotional intelligence to do so? What happens when you don't?
It's worth it just to, one of the things that jumped out to me was asking my colleagues, how are you? But
That's it.
then it's worth it to measure how often do I ask that question and then actually listen to their response. Or how often do I ask it and then walk off towards the copy or the coffee machine? Taking the time to be empathetic with my colleagues is important.
And I think that stems from just American society itself. You know, our big thing is, hey, how are you? Good, good, good. How you doing? Good, good, good. And everybody walks away. But it's okay. We know that there's a time and place. But I think the empathetic aspect of this is the cues that we see for our students might be the cues that we also see for our teachers. I had this one teacher one time come in and she just felt safe enough with me. My room was safe. Our friendship, we were cultivating a wonderful friendship, and she just came in. And I saw on her face, she just needed something. We got someone else to come, a paraprofessional, come into the room. The bathroom, lucky for me, was right across the way. And there she was and literally fell into my lap. She just fell on the floor and just started to cry. And she just had the vulnerability to do that, which is strength in itself.
Right.
But it was just the stresses, personal things that were going on, education, stuff that was happening. We have so much stuff that's going on in our lives. Do we really know how to take care of it? So that's why I wanted to talk about the last one. And when we talk about, we have the empathy, we have the self-management, the self-awareness, but really all that bottles down to a big thing, which is skilled relationship, which means how do we put all these three together and how do we manage our life with it? And that's something we have to think about. We are not investing in social capital at all when it comes to education.
Right.
And as a result, teachers are leaving the profession, and there is a 10% increase per year of teachers on anxiety medicine, teachers with anxiety, teachers with depression, and teachers with other mental illness that they're not discussing, whether it be brought on by the stress of the job or something that was already that they had that they don't want to talk about, but is exacerbated by the job, if you will. Coming from yours truly, who suffers from anxiety and a mental illness. And to say that out loud is taboo. How do you say something like that when you're in charge of 120 kids every year for 18 years?
But that shows your self-awareness and your emotional maturity, right?
Exactly what you just said. Thanks for saying that, because that means a lot to me, coming from someone who really, is sometimes still has that word of shame, which is actually one of the emotions of the 8 emotions that we have to deal with emotional intelligence. But to be cognizant, to be self-aware of why I have panic attacks or why I feel shameful that I have something going on in my brain where someone has to do something to make sure that they're better for their diabetes. What is the difference if someone wants to make sure that's better for their panic disorder? We have to see mental illness as well as something that is an epidemic that's happening in our profession, which is another conversation for another time, a little coffee talk with my Georgia man here. But right now, we have to just honestly start talking about the emotional intelligence and investing in what we call the social capital and the emotional capital of our teachers.
And that improving that for the adults in the building is a good launch pad, is a good first step towards improving that for the kids that sit in the desks.
Yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, it's okay, teach SEL. This is what you have to do. Be aware of it. See it. All of this. But what about this teacher that goes, I'm about to quit this job and you're expecting me to deal with these kiddies' emotions right now when I don't even know what I'm doing with my own? And this is where we want to give this. There is zero mental health for our teachers. There is zero things going on. And if it is, please shout out, comment, do something, because we want to know what's working in other districts so that we can visit you and see what's happening and how emotional intelligence and impact of emotional intelligence training in teachers are really helping education and helping the environment. And yes, it is with leadership as well. You have to have emotionally intelligent leadership. You have to have this relationship. And there's so many studies out there that talk about the importance of a leader, and that person has to have that emotional intelligence in order for them to be really successful leaders. So here we are in teachers leading right now. Shouldn't we lead as well with our own knowledge of our own emotions so that we can drive instruction through our expertise in our subject matter and the expertise in our own way of handling how we see the world through our emotions, right?
Uh, I'm willing to bet that every teacher out there wants to help to create young people who are both intelligent but also ready to be good citizens. That's what all of us have gotten into this career for. And no doubt, social emotional learning, SEL, is at the heart of all that. I'm excited to be a part of this conversation. I think or hope we've done a really good job this evening. Some of the stories we've told have been examples of the fact that SEL can work in classrooms. And then I hope everybody was taking notes like I have. I'm going to go read Daniel Goldman, and I've got jotted down the 4 domains of emotional intelligence. I can't wait to increase my learning, be more self-aware, so that I can be better for my students.
Well, I love that. And I love the fact that we incorporated the adult and the child, because that's the whole point of education. Healthy and happy teachers, healthy and happy students, healthy and happy environments, healthy and happy communities. And that's the social change we're looking for in our world right now. And incremental is monumental, is it not? So yeah, little bits and pieces. Even if you just take, now again, this is just Goldman. There's many other ways of looking at it, but it comes down to a lot of it. So Mayer and Salovey and Nelson and Lowe, and there's a whole bunch that I can definitely get information for you and see the ones that match and fit you the best. Especially for education, Nelson and Lowe and Hammett do a wonderful job with that, because it started actually in Texas A&M, and they talked about higher education and emotional intelligence in pre-service students and pre-service teachers. So I really wanted to focus and give a shout out to all of these amazing researchers who were doing their best to try to incorporate that into our amazing profession. And little by little, and like we said, incremental is monumental. And if that means take one of the domains and talk about it over the summer and think about it, and then every 9 weeks of the school year, take another domain. And before you know it, by the end of the school year, you have a full year reflecting on your practice of social emotional learning, embedding in your content and reflecting on your own emotions through the 4 domains of self-awareness, self-management, empathy, and then the skills to actually put it all together to work together as adults. I think it's a great conversation to have. Casey, I am so honored to be in this room with you. And I just did air quotes, didn't I? Yeah, I did. I think it's time to go. Yeah.
I will leave you guys with Martin Luther King said that knowledge plus character is the goal of education. We want our young people to be intelligent, but we also want them to be good citizens.
Fantastic. Casey, it's been such a pleasure, and I'm just so excited. Thank you so much for joining us on the Teachers Leading 4th in a weekly series by NSTOY and for NSTOY members and family. We hope you join us again. We hope you enjoy it. Please comment and let us know how you feel. And you can reach me at 2014 Florida Toy on Twitter. And Casey, what's your handle?
They can find me at 2017 Georgia TOTY. By the way, Georgia loves Florida.
And Florida loves Georgia. And here's a little secret. I'm in Georgia right now. My office is in Valdosta. Ooh, so we're in the same state. And we love every state here. We love if you're watching us worldwide. Come on, let's get this conversation going. Let's keep it going. Let's keep ourselves emotionally sound. EQ over IQ, and let's get our SEL in our babies, because every student learns and every teacher deserves to be happy. Happy teacher, happy student, happy world. Let's get this done, guys. Keep it going. Thanks again for watching. Casey, send us off.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.